What is going on, everyone? And welcome into the semi-usual college football after dark. Obviously, last week we were not here because piss poor planning on my part. But also there wasn't a lot to talk about last week. But this week we've got some stuff to talk about. We have bowl games. We have other coaching changes. And, of course, the somber moment, which won't be so somber, hopefully, in remembering Mike Leach. And so we will have some other people joining us, hopefully. But right now we have our usual panel, and I'm going to let them all do what they do before. So John to Tony to Will and so on, please introduce yourselves to the viewers. John.
Hey, everybody. This is One Scoop John, a.k.a. John Diadamo, Michigan fan here. Always great to be here. That's it. Go Blue.
I'm Tony, and I help co-host the USD post games and the Pac-12 chat show on Wednesday nights.
All right, hey guys, it's Will. I'm a Notre Dame fan here. I help run the channel Young Guns and also my own channel Will MD. And right now I'm an agitated Commanders fan, so I'm gonna stay on mute probably for a good bit of this game. We have to beat the G-Men, but yeah, go Irish and go Commanders tonight for sure.
What's up, guys? Yeah, it's turning into a good game. What's up, guys? It's Jordan, the resident Clemson fan, and also co-host of the Clemson Voice of College Football channel. So make sure to check that out if you guys would like.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tim, and I join Rick and Chris and Tony on the Pac-12 show as well as the after the Trojan post-game show.
Oh, and I'm just Ben of Exploring with Ben and Sam. Maybe Sam will join us here later for a cameo as usual, but
doubt it.
Probably not. Yeah, he's kind of passed out. I got him a little too fucked up earlier on some alcohol. So we're going to language on my part. Apologize, Mark. We are going to get into a bunch of topics tonight, but you can also find me sometimes on the pregame and postgame for the Oregon show. Of course, every Sunday night here for the most part, except for the next week or two, as we schedule this stuff, as I will be traveling, as I am right now. So let's get right into the nitty-gritty, though, as we have a bunch of different topics to talk about, and I think they're very important to cover, and I know, John, you are in the thick of it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben. Before we get diving into it, though, a couple of quick housekeeping things. If everybody can please like this video and subscribe to the Voice of College Football. It helps the channel greatly. Also, we tend to get into it when we're doing our panel discussions. So therefore, if you want to get in front of the line and ask a question or give a comment or anything like that, consider sending a super chat. It doesn't have to be $1 bazillion, but it just helps get, helps get your comment, your question right in front of us, and we can tackle it a little easier that way. And then join the Patreon. So any of these people on the panel, they're on the Patreon. So if you want to be on, people ask me sometimes, how do I get on this thing? Or you have too many Michigan fans. Then you can also be on the panel too. Because if you join the Patreon for $5 every month, you'll get to be part of the panel if you want to be. Also, you get to chat 24/7, 365 with all of us knuckleheads. We have watch parties. Even Mark stops by from time to time, and that's a blast. Also, he does his Mark has his betting guide. So, not only does Mark submit that, but he also has media members all across the country submit their picks. That's a lot of stuff for basically scrounging up a couple of coins out of your couch cushion for $5 a month. So consider doing that, and it really does help the channel. With that said, we're going to get started with Coach Mike Leach. Obviously, recent passing had a major mark on the game of college football. Considered an innovator in offense, and also just one of the most wacky, coolest personalities I think I've come across out of just in my watching. But anybody wanted to chat about kind of what he meant to you or meant to anybody.
Well, some of the coaches, when you tune in to watch like a coach's scrum and the media's there, a media scrum with them, it's just you get the same. Hey, we're gonna try hard. One game at a time. Blah blah. And then there's Mike Leach, right? The guy was in it, nothing, no conversation, no topic was off. They'd ask him a question. My favorite one, if we want to talk about favorite memories, is when they're talking about which of the mascots would win in a fight in the Pac-12.
Yes, that was great.
That's epic. He'd go on, talking about candy and the candy corn. He would talk about all kinds of things. And there's some good interviews out there, but I think people would be hard pressed to find a better interview than Mike.
I couldn't disagree. I mean, I could agree with Tim and wholeheartedly because that was a fantastic as a Pac-12 person. Where it's like, what would the duck do? Oh, he'd just fly away. What does the Sun Devil have? What power does he have? Like him giving this speech about war battles of like how you attack offensively in war using football and terminology at Washington State. But for me, Mike Leach's best interview was still at Texas Tech where they lost. And he's like, well, the players here, because their fat little girlfriends tell them. Like, it's just, it just comes to mind.
Whispering sweet nothing.
Which, by the way, the only reason that didn't get more play is because across the hall, wasn't it across the hall that was the I'm a man, I'm 40, I can take it?
Oh, maybe.
I think it was.
No, it was like the problem is the fat little girlfriends thing didn't get any traction because right across the hall, Mike Gundy lost his mind.
Oh,
like they were playing each other.
I didn't know that.
That might be it. That might be it. That's an unknown. That might be an unknown fact about that. But that was even so much better because he said it like 3 times. Like those fat little girlfriends of theirs.
And the best part was in that no one talks about that he said afterward. He was like, but of course the fat girlfriends do have their obvious advantages.
He did.
Oh man, I mean, what else can you say about him that hasn't already been said? I mean,
he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. That's what has.
I agree.
Let's get him in the Hall of Fame.
And
if you guys don't understand what John's saying is the Hall of Fame has a stupid rule that to get as a coach to get into the Hall of Fame, you need to have a 60% win percentage in order to get in. So of course you coach at like a school like Alabama or like an Oklahoma or somewhere you're gonna get a lot of wins. Then you've got a good chance if you win at those schools and you get your percentage high enough, you win a couple of national championships, boom, you're in. But if you're one of these guys like Mike Leach should take the job at Washington State, you take the job at Mississippi State, Texas Tech, right? And you're coaching at these schools that are perennial doormats, and then win the Pac-12 and beat Texas on the road with Crabtree and Harrell. These great memories we have, these underdog teams that he was a part of, and challenge and win the Egg Bowl his last game, win the Egg Bowl in the SEC. You don't get to get into the Hall of Fame because you're not a good coach. Well, I mean, I guess sometimes a lot of times you look at the teams that are the best coaches, they probably don't have the best talent, but what do they do with that talent? And a school like Washington State, they've always done more, almost, like Oregon State and Washington State. These schools bring it, and they don't ever have the same athletes as the Washingtons or the Oregons or USCs or UCLAs, but they challenge. And when Mike Leach was there, he was a pain in everyone's ass. He was just out coaching everybody. So they need to get rid of that rule. It's just absolutely absurd. A guy like Schnellenberger, he's not going to get in, right? Turns a whole program around, changes the history of college football, right? And he will never get in. Why? Because he didn't win enough games. It's like, I think they got to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, Mike Leach has easily over 20 years plus experience coaching, offensive coordinator, whatever you have. And he's taken every program he's been at and made them at least relevant, competing. And as Tim said, in the Pac-12 especially, he took Wazoo, who was a doormat, and made them a pain in everyone's ass every year. Yeah. Every year. He beat Oregon several times, and we were like, I hate playing Wazoo. I absolutely hate it, until he left, and we were like, thank God. Thank God. You know, like so.
I mean,
he deserves consideration. Definitely, he absolutely deserves consideration.
I mean,
I
he
really
beat-
like the Dave Aranda interview when they're interviewing Dave Aranda about like what Mike Leach meant to him. Because that was like Aranda's first job was as a GA at Texas Tech, and it's just great. And it's such a great interview. It's on Twitter, so definitely check that out.
And on that,
and if you guys aren't following Dave Emmerich, who is Lincoln Riley's general manager, he was Mike Leach's GM for years and years, and he has spent the last 2 weeks posting the funniest like remembrances of Coach Leach of anybody, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Jordan, what were you gonna say?
Oh, well, just on the point of just him, like I remember. Well, I don't remember because I was like 3 years old when it happened. But I mean, he beat Clemson in the what's now the Cheez-It Bowl, but it was then the Tangerine Bowl. So that's a throwback. 55-15. Him and Cliff Kingsbury at quarterback came and beat Clemson in the Tangerine Bowl in 2002, I believe, 55-15, and just he was just a spearhead of the offensive renaissance that happened over the last 20 years, and I think he doesn't get a lot. I think he gets a lot of credit for it, but I don't think people really realize how much of an influence him and Hal Mumme and what they developed over at Valdosta State. I mean, you still see its influences in the NL. And I remember I saw a tweet about his coaching tree and all the current head coaches and assistants that have worked under Mike Leach, and it's just a really impressive list. So I mean, not only was he just a phenomenal character within the college football world, but I mean, really, I don't think people like really truly understand how much of a revolutionary he was for the game itself.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing how much Hal Mumme, gives credit to Mike Leach. One, not just because like he came up with the air raid name, but how much he transformed even what he was doing and took it forward. And that could be a bunch of modesty, on his part, obviously, because he himself transformed offenses. But Mike Leach kind of took it a little step further. I mean, and how many games can you name where you didn't see Mike Leach just standing there with literally like a napkin in his hand going, I have 5 plays. I'm going to make 40 out of them. And just like out of his memory, run these different plays. And it was the most absurd thing you'd ever seen. The announcers every game were like, what is he calling? Like he doesn't have a play sheet in front of him. It's all in his head.
That's one of those good interviews. There's an interviewer asked him, he's like, yeah, is it true, coach? You only have 8 plays? And he just goes nuts on the guy, right? For a few minutes. He goes, we have 10. So, I mean, that's just him, it's just, I never met him. You kind of feel like these coaches are so personal. You do know them. So when I heard that he had passed away, again, such a 61, such a young age. And it kind of hit me hard, but really quickly, just I don't leave anyone out. Jordan, you talked about the coaching tree. So I'll start off with the guys that probably some fans out there aren't very happy with. There's like Neil Brown, Dana Holgerson. That one's for Joey. But then listen to these guys. Ready? Sonny Dykes, Sonny Cumbie, Josh Heupel, Cliff Kingsbury, Seth Luttrell, Lincoln Riley. These guys are the big names this year. I mean, it's a great year for a lot of those guys I just named, and they all owe their start. And all those teams, if that's your coach, you owe a lot to Mike Leach. So I'm really glad we took a moment to talk about him.
Absolutely. I think that was a great way to wrap that up. And, obviously thoughts and well wishes to the family and all of that good stuff. But he really was a character. And I think that college football, more than anything else, needs its characters, needs its people who are going to just have that personality to do that. So obviously, he rests in peace. So now we're getting into the bowl games, and we're going to start with It Just Means More. Oregon State thrashes Florida 30-3. I understand that there was like 200 million people out because they were sitting out for the NFL or whatever the case may be. but I don't even know if Tebow reincarnated would have helped them necessarily win the game. I don't know. What were those of you who watched? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, well, one, they had 5 opt-outs. They talked about this 20 number, but a lot of these guys were the backup guys, right? We all know when a new coach comes in, because think about USC. Look at the roster turnover at USC this year. You know what I mean? A lot of people entered the portal that were there that weren't going to play. So these aren't the guys who were starters, right? They're getting out of there. They had 5 guys, really good, couple guys on defense and their best offensive lineman, their quarterback. But let's face it, Oregon State has a very good secondary. And I mean, the last thing you want is the 11th rated passer in the SEC, not the country, in the SEC, the 11th rate. You know, it's not like they were missing that much by not having him. So I'm glad that the Beavs showed them it wasn't close. This game, I don't care who they had on that team. They won't watch that game. It was not even the same ballpark. The 20 number again was just overinflated because these are guys who leave the program the whole season, and they weren't contributors. That's why they're leaving. You know what I mean? They did have 5 opt-outs, but you know the Beavs had 1, so they had 4 more opt-outs, and they just kicked their butts up and down the field. That field goal at the end, I'll let you guys touch on that. But
that was so sad.
Wave the white flag. Wave the white flag.
You might as well get asterisk up there.
And that's
Very
why, guys,
polarizing.
that's why we've got Benny Beaver in the VIP room at Mandalay Bay live after the game.
That field goal was a submission to go, we ain't getting a touchdown because they got sacked on 3rd and like 10 from the, 3rd and goal at the 10-yard line to make a 4th and goal from like the 23. They basically had to take that as just to get points and not get shut out for the first time in like however many, I can't remember the amount of games that had been. Yeah, it was the longest streak or something. It was so they just took the points at that point, because if it had been like 4th and 10 or 4th and goal from the 10-yard line, they probably would have gone for it maybe. But at that sack, that was it, because the Beavers were blitzing nonstop the entire game. Like they controlled that game nonstop.
They were laying the wood.
Yeah. And to your point, Tim, you mentioned, how good Oregon State's secondary was. And obviously they've been tremendous all year. But what I came away more impressed with actually was the play of Oregon State's front 7. Because, it was thought, Oregon State has a really good pass defense, but, they're kind of thin up front, and, they can be moved around. But they really dominated the line of scrimmage. And on both sides. But I thought defensively, they did a good job. I think Florida ran a total of 39 yards the entire game on like 33 rushes. And Florida's best running backs played, Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. I'm still cut up with that he didn't choose Clemson, but
yeah.
That's familiar.
But so those two backs play. Those are two of probably better backs in the country, and they're going to be really, really good next year. But they held those guys to 39 yards rushing total, and I thought that was extremely impressive. So I thought it was just a really complete performance by the Beavers. They were clearly the better coached, more prepared team. I really don't think even if Florida had those guys that the game would have been much different. Because this was just I think this was more of a tale of a team being prepared, and the other team not, being so prepared. And you can't change that by adding bringing some players back. That's on coaching. That's on culture. I saw those clips on Twitter of the Florida guy, like Florida defenders, like, not giving 100% on their pass rush, or there was one clip that went viral. It just felt like that's a culture thing, and that doesn't change by, if we had this guy or this guy. So
I don't like ripping other coaches, but do you think this job's just too big for Billy Napier? Do you think he's just like right? He just fits better in the Sun Belt. Do you think?
I think the jury's still out on that.
Give him another year.
I think I think the jury's still out. Obviously, this is not the kind of season that you expect as a Florida fan. They have some, they had some issues from, leftover from the Dan Mullen tenure, but man, just some of the games they had this year. You lose to Vanderbilt, you get blown out in a lot of games, and it just, your defense is absolutely terrible. It just, and you don't think Florida fans are just going to be complacent with back-to-back losing seasons, regardless of, some of the issues that may be left over from the previous, coaching staff. Going 6-7 at Florida with your roster talent is that's not acceptable. And there's going to have to be changes made. But, Billy Napier, he's not on the hot seat or anything like that. He's recruiting well. But I think the jury's still out on that.
Yeah, he's gonna have at least 1 to 2 more years, as long as he's showing improvement, because I think he is. He's dealing with some Dan Mullen recruiting. He's implementing his system, and it's not quite to what he wants. But that was a god awful showing, and I mean, all respect to the Beavers as a Ducks fan, all respect to Clint and Moses. Clint Moses, Connor Johnson. Our Beaver trustful fans here, because Beavers slapped the hell out of those Gators right out of that. I mean, that park. Florida's lucky they scored, period. I mean, to be honest.
They out-physicaled. I mean, the Beavers really out-physicaled the Gators. And I always thought that the Gator could out-physical the Beaver, but in this case, it was the other way around. The stiff arm. So
never mess with a chainsaw-wielding Beaver.
I mean, really. So yeah. Jam Griffin, the stiff arm was really cool. Also, the rushing yardage and receiving, I thought that they did a great job there. With Fenwick getting 107 rushing yards. So they like literally it was a cultural. It was like a match of two cultures. One that we had opt-outs. It just didn't seem like they were taking it too seriously. Meanwhile, Oregon State, the Beavers just went all out and they took it to them, 30-3. So good. Congrats, Oregon State Beavers and Connor and Clint and everybody in chat, because it was a great win. So we did have we're going on a few close call bowl games. So we did have Coach Prime's final game at Jackson State, and obviously definitely gave Jackson State a lot of visibility. It was a really close game. Those of you who watched it went to overtime, but North Carolina Central was able to pull out the victory. And there's been some discussion, and I'm curious to get your feelings on this, whether you watched the game or not, about coaches coming back to coach that last bowl game after they've taken a position somewhere else. And I thought it was cool that he went back, but I remember when Scott Frost went back, and then obviously we had Nebraska. So it's definitely, there's been some mixed results on that, but I'd love to get your take and just what you've seen with games in the past.
I think there's a different issue here, and folks can hate on me for this. And you guys have seen the Pack Show, know that I am like Coach Prime fan number one. Mm-hmm. He did so much for Jackson State in terms of helping build them into a program, in terms of getting them on the map. I mean, his son is the quarterback, that he has, I think, a figurehead status to Jackson State right now that most coaches don't have. And if you actually watch, and I'm going to talk about the nonsense douchebags on Twitter, if you actually watch the videos of him with his team and his coaches with his team, they love him and they continue to respect him. And they don't view it as he left them. They view it as he is moving on to take what they have accomplished to another level, to the whole country. And it's a different mind. It's the opposite of like Scott Satterfield leaving, Louisville for Cincinnati. It's the opposite of that. There is like and I'm trying to think of a good analogy of like a coach who's like really made like a real symbolic like move. I'm having trouble.
Chris Peterson, a little bit. Chris Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. Like a little bit like Chris Peterson going from Boise to UW. Like it's like they don't feel slighted. Like he didn't desert them. Like he built them up, and he has accomplished something else. And the other thing too is, and because I have a lot of friends who went to HBCUs, and I'm a huge HBCU supporter and fan, and two folks in the HBCU community, the idea that like he is taking what they have succeeded with to Colorado. Like, that's a win. And that's exciting. And it's awesome. And so I think that Deion is a little different in that. And again, sort of the polar opposite of like the Scott Satterfield situation.
And I agree with everything Tony said, but on a practical point, going on the Deion tour that he did that week probably wasn't the best thing for bowl prep. You know what I mean? Of all the weeks to be doing that stuff, it clearly probably did take away from bowl prep.
It did, but also, Tim, not to interrupt, just one quick. Sorry, I was going to say this also. Like, if he had just gone like anybody else had done, like if he did the everybody else move and just left and took Shador and took Travis Hunter and took everybody else, they wouldn't have been in overtime.
Well, and I was going to say that they did much better in that game than they would if they had an interim coach, because he was there for the pregame. The kids were fighting one last time for their coach. So, I mean, I'm just saying I agree with you 100%, Tony, but I'm saying from a practical standpoint, going on the tour of Colorado, maybe that could have waited a week. I don't know. You know what I mean? Just for the practical football, getting ready for a game point. But by far, I've never been a fan of. I hate when people say, "Oh, they're gonna get a bump because of the interim coach." Look, no team is better off. I gotta be careful I say that. Most teams, almost all teams are better with their head coach staying for a bowl game than an interim coach, because it just turns into, well, no, even with our situation with that guy used to coach us, that was a 6-6, maybe a 7-5 team that ended up being a 4-8 team. Why? Because you're a rudderless ship, right? They're a head coach, whether a good head coach, whether the coach is going to take you to that next level or not, they're still a head coach. And so you have an interim, it's never really a good thing. But here's a turning it a little bit though. I don't know if you guys have the Southwest commercials, but want to get away. That poor tight end, that in overtime, that ball was right. I mean,
they killed him too.
He looked like a defensive lineman trying to catch a ball. He did not look like a tight end. It was like right in his hand. He went bloop, right on the floor.
You guys, it was, and I know this is like probably not politically correct.
Don't go there, Tony. Don't go there, Tony.
Go there. I know exactly what you're about to say.
It's a little ironic that a white kid dropped the ball to lose the Black National Championship.
If you weren't going to say it, Tony, I was. If you weren't going to say it, Tony, I was. So that you don't. All
right.
And I say that one of my friends. That's actually I'm quoting the host of one of our Florida State shows here on the Voice of College Football, who pointed that out.
What's his name? What's his name?
Was it James?
I'm not naming names so he doesn't have to face the wrath. But my favorite line is he said, "I called two of my white friends to make sure it was okay for me to point this out."
I do agree with Tim. I think the head coach is always best to stay on, even if they're kind of taking. At least Deion was upfront with that, his situation. Guess what? Other teams catch on to other teams, and some teams play harder than other teams. And, you can't take into account all the situations, but it was a close game and everyone gave it their all. So, and Deion said up front, I'm finishing what I'm doing at Jackson State. And he stayed on board, even in a loss. Does that make Colorado regret their situation? Hell no, they don't. Hell no, they don't. They are on board. They have already sent him his check, and he has already packed his bags, and he is on his way to Colorado.
Oh, did they find the money? I heard they were looking for the money. Did they find the money at Colorado? That's good. That's good to know.
They got the money.
This isn't Texas A&M. Colorado has been sitting on that shit for years.
I also to people who are grumpy about that, we don't have a white national championship, so. And good thing we don't. We got rid of that SEC. We got rid of that in 1960.
Wow.
Right. But the thing that I think is important here too, it's really actually awesome, is that Jackson State, I think, has been supportive of him moving on to Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually kind of a model that like more teams probably should follow. Like I think Jackson State has been so honorable in that it's actually pretty awesome.
Well, I think it's that he actually came out and said, "Look, this is how business works." He didn't just like shy away from it and then go, "Oh, well, hey guys, by the way, I'm going to Colorado." Sorry. he came out straight up to everyone and said, "Hey, this is how business works. Like, you move up, you stay the same, or you get downgraded." I mean, that's straight up business model. I mean, like, and success in life. I mean, you do one or the other, basically. So I give him props for that.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people don't realize just I mean, Jackson State guys, I mean, as a program, they have a lot of history. They are a prideful,
Yeah.
they have a ton. They used to be a powerhouse. And, for the last, before Deion Sanders got there, for the last like 15 or so years, they had been kind of just wandering in the wilderness. They hadn't won a SWAC title since 2006, 7, something like that. That it was a program. Walter Payton went there. Who am I thinking of? Lem Barney went there. They have so many NFL Hall of Famers that have played on their field, and so
and they outdraw a good chunk of the SEC, the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the
they
ACC.
constantly lead the in attendance figures. Like they're
awesome.
And so that program has a lot of pride, and they had been struggling for a really long time. And what Deion did to kind of build them back up into the powerhouse that they were, it was really special. And I think a lot of people, that aren't really as familiar with, HBCUs and all that, they don't really get. But it's a huge deal, and I don't think like Deion's like impact can be overstated as far as what he brought to that program from a national perspective. So they're spending, they've made so much more money than they ever have in the history of their program. I mean, they've become an attractive spot for, a lot of young high school players. And I think that's, exactly. So I really didn't have a problem, with him playing the bowl. And I respected that he came back to play for the bowl game or coach for the bowl game because, he didn't have to. But I think there was just such a mutual love and respect from the institution and Deion, and it's an amicable parting, regardless of what people, that hate the move on Twitter and all that. What internally they were in that, they were in sync, and it was very amicable. So.
Absolutely. And the fact that he cut his pay in half, I mean, nobody does that. And he did that so that the kids could have better facilities, better stuff. He signed deals, like he called his advertiser friends, got them all fitted with new stuff. And I just think like he was able to dip into his connections and his stuff from his time to really help that program out in major ways that, so I think that overall, I think they're okay with them going to Colorado because they know what I think that they know, like it was really something what he gave to that program. So we have, hey guys, remember Tanner Mordecai? Well, he did help SMU almost get the win, although unfortunately, for some who aren't a big fan of BYU, they did win. But overall, very, we love those tight games, and so it was a 24-23. Tanner Mordecai had a great game passing with 218 yards, passing yards, 2 touchdowns. BYU's quarterback also had a lot of rushing yardage. So
is he Rigby? Was his name Rigby?
What?
Okay, wait. Have you guys watched regular show, or you guys not watch that? Okay, it was from the regular show.
I have seen the regular show. It's a great show.
Yeah, but no, that was who anybody check that game out?
Mm-hmm. I remember it was a pretty close game, but I couldn't watch it all.
Yeah, it was tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody who has thoughts on BYU, SMU, but just based on just again seeing how dual threat quarterbacks are kind of coming up in the league, and we're seeing it at the top level, obviously with Michigan, JJ McCarthy, and what he's been able to do on the ground and in the air and everything. So, I think we're looking forward to some great bowl games and playoffs ahead. Taking care of business. So these ones are schools that in their bowl game they took care of business. They won by multiple touchdowns, all of that good stuff. Hey, we got a cameo appearance from the Sam.
Sam.
Not just Sam,
I doubted you,
the
Sam. I'm sorry.
Sam.
I said you.
I know. I suckered him into it. I suckered him into the cameo. We want to order food from Denny's, so we're about to order food. But I had to get him.
late night Denny's. I know.
You can't go wrong. You can't go. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. All right, carry on, John. Carry on.
Heck
John.
yeah, heck yeah. I call this the assistant coaches bowl. Louisville takes care of Cincinnati. I was just in the great city of Louisville myself this past week, and it was a great time. Lots of bourbon. So the Louisville won that game pretty handily, and it kind of just shows you when the such a dynamic quarterback in Desmond Ridder goes to the NFL, and that now the head coach obviously is going to be at Wisconsin. It does have an impact on the game a little bit, especially because I feel like since he was a punching up above their weight type school, and now without kind of those two pieces, do you think that impacted it, or what do you think was the key to Louisville pulling out the win in this one?
Their defense. I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't paid attention to Louisville football this year, but
why, Jordan? We like to watch everything that happens at 11 o'clock in the morning in a 40-degree baseball field in front of dozens of fans in Boston in December.
Absolutely,
maybe even hundreds.
Yeah, no, but the second half of the year, Louisville's defense really has been pretty much dominant in a lot of their
I watched
games.
them against UCF, and they held down John Rice Plumlee pretty well in that game.
Yeah, that they have a really talented front seven this year. And they just won the line of scrimmage. They beat up Cincinnati up front. They have really, really talented linebackers. Really they lead the country in sacks. I don't think a lot of people know that, but they lead the country in sacks, and tackles for loss. So they are a really aggressive and disruptive defense. And that was pretty much the day. I mean, offensively, they ran the ball extremely well against a pretty solid Cincinnati defense. Jawar Jordan, I remember, had like 2 really big runs. So that was just the story of the game. It was really complete. I think Deion Branch was their interim coach. I think the players really like him, and they kind of rally around him. So I think if Jeff Brom is smart, I think he would find a way to keep him around. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I thought it was a really good win for Louisville, and it was just kind of I know it was a really nice victory for Louisville fans, considering the less than amicable split of Scott Satterfield and kind of just that whole toxic relationship. So good win for Louisville. Happy for our guy Austin Williams, our resident Louisville fan. He was really happy about the win. So shout out to you, Austin. Good win for your Cards, and things are looking up.
Yeah, you nailed it. When your defense only allows 150 yards or less. I don't know. It was ridiculous that what they did to that.
They had one busted coverage, and that was on Cincinnati's only score, and then they were dominant the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, third down, like 1 or 2 of 15. I mean, they couldn't do anything on offense. So you got a dominant defense like that. They showed out.
Absolutely. So yeah, just a reminder, everybody in chat, if y'all have a question, y'all have a comment, whatever you want, just throw us a super chat. That doesn't have to be crazy, but just helps us get to that. Helps that comment get seen. But moving on to the Fresno State versus Wazoo, 29-6, Fresno State. And I'm somebody who I don't really watch a lot of Washington State or Fresno State much, but I gotta say, I mean, based on the little bit that I've seen, I was a little surprised by just how lopsided that score was.
Yeah, the Haterade was on. The Haterade was on. But also Fresno's defense really impressed me. Like I thought that they would at least get a little more going on offense. The Cougs would.
Yeah. I mean, Fresno just was on fire offensively. Quarterback play. How about 209 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for the run game there for Jordan Memes or Mims, however you say that.
I didn't see this game, and I saw the stat line at the end, and I was really surprised. I mean, I wasn't shocked that Fresno State won. I picked Washington State to win, but I wasn't surprised that they won, but it was in the manner that they did. Like, the Fresno State, they just came to play, and they just said, we're not taking any of this crap from you, Pac-12, Washington State. We're not dealing with you. Like, and shut them down. I mean, it's all that can be said, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they did lose. So to not take anything away from Fresno State, awesome. Hainer is a monster. He's great. Obviously, we got hurt the USC game. They lost a couple of people. Why are they losing to Connecticut? Well, it's because Hainer was out. You see this team with Hainer. You see this team without Hainer. It's 2 different worlds. I did see also that their defense, like Tony and I were talking about, we're trying to make our picks for the Pac-12 show. We got this one right. Those defensive linemen, especially the rush end. I mean, that guy, they were in the backfield all day long. Those guys, they have some talented guys on their defensive line. But let's also keep it real. Both of Washington State's linebackers were out of the game. One opted out. One transferred. Right, one's in the transfer portal. Both those guys were stars. Both were beasts on their defense this year. They lost. Eric Morris, right? Who's their offensive coordinator. He took a job somewhere, I forgot, North Texas, so I can't remember. And then on their defensive coordinator, they lost Brian Ward, who was, I think, going down with Willingham at Arizona State. So to be real, this is a team in transition and got messed up. Does that make a difference? I don't think so. I mean, Fresno State laid the wood to them. Would it have been a different game? Would have been closer? Probably, we could say it would have been a lot closer, maybe even a win. But with all those losses, you lose your offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, your 2 best players on defense, your 2 linebackers. It's going to have an effect on your team.
I got to lay the wood. One, Tim, absolutely correct. One, every team has losses. Guess what? Teams take losses because they have transfers or opt-outs and everything like that. I got to lay the wood to real MVP. When was the last time the Pac-12 beat a G5 team? Well, it doesn't matter. We just beat the hell out of Oregon or Florida. So, DeReal, you can just go back off from your argument right there, no matter opt-outs or whatever.
There's actually a big distinction though with the Wazoo game, and that is that Washington star quarterback Jake Haener won his own private Apple Cup.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Coached by Cal coach Jeff Tedford, with Washington quarterback Jake Haener won their own private Apple Cup while being cheered on by Fresno fans.
That is a good point. But I just have to point out, DeReal, you just watch your mouth over there. Just wait for Kentucky State. Watch your mouth.
By the way, while we're on that subject, how did Kentucky do in basketball? What about Tennessee and Auburn? I hear they're all supposed to be pretty good, right?
Oh man.
Or did they all go down in flames?
I watched Auburn lose today at the Galen Center of basketball, so I know we beat them. Yeah.
And Tennessee went down to Arizona.
I think the UCLA.
And I think our friend, our co-host Chris, was at Madison Square Garden for the end of the Wildcats.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
There's some other comments coming in about
Should we bring on Chris to talk about it a bit?
Hashtag math.
We need to get some other people on here though. There's some arguments about the Florida.
We're just teasing you, DeReal. Sorry, by the way, DeReal, we're sorry for your loss as a Kentucky fan.
Would that have combated 27-point loss? I don't think so. So sorry, SEC. Oregon State beat your ass. Get over it.
But hey, you got points on the board. So
keep that streak alive. You keep that streak alive.
So we've had a lot of coaching moves. since the last time we all got together and did this. So we had quite a few. We had obviously recently the news that Jeff Brom was coming home and taking the Louisville job. So that was one that kind of I'm not surprised that happened. Kind of seems like Purdue had hit that point where they won the Big Ten West, and that kind of felt like the ceiling for them. So that was there kind of a coaching move that surprised you, or you thought it was just extra good, or what do you think was your favorite?
Coach Prime.
Oh well, duh. Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah.
I mean, that's the number one.
That was a shocker.
That's a cheat. That's a cheat.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was like the I didn't even shoot for that one because that's just like absolutely. I didn't.
I really like Matt Rule to Nebraska. I really feel like you can build something there, build them back up. Maybe not to the level that they were under Osborne, because that's just crazy talk.
Yeah.
But if they can at least get back to they were under Bo Pelini, 9 wins most years, maybe a 10-win season.
Hey, how about winning a bowl game?
Yeah, that would be a start.
Let's go there.
For
Let's
sure.
just start that there, and you know.
Well, I mean,
baby
Fickle
steps,
to
but-
Wisconsin, I think that's gonna be huge as well. I mean, now you got that Big Ten West. I don't think we'll be laughing about them. As soon as Iowa fires Brian, I think that the Big Ten West will be sorted out. So I mean, I think there's a lot going on that look forward to in the West.
And Fickle took North Carolina's OC, which has been a good offense. So imagine Wisconsin back with a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, just an offense that actually has some passing concepts in it. In addition, I mean, Wisconsin's always been a great run offense school, strong defense, and that's really when you think of Wisconsin, you're thinking of like Jonathan Taylor and some of these just great running backs that they've had over the last 20, 30 years. So for Fickle to come in and bring in some passing concepts and to kind of just modernize it a bit, but then they keep the identity of who they've had. Oh yeah,
Wait, was Ben just floating a Drake May rumor there when he was talking about? Were you just rolling past that, or are you just gonna let that go? Or
what? I didn't see it. That was the first comment I clicked on.
well, you said they got the Tar Heels OC, and they said they're gonna get a really good quarterback.
Drake May.
They're not pulling Drake May.
Drake May came out publicly
that would be big.
that he's not going anywhere. He's all
he's not going anywhere.
But here is something to note really fast, because this is amazing. Dave Valensky.
Thank you, Dave.
Exactly. $9.99. That's amazing.
$9.99. I love it. And it's exactly what we've been saying. We're worth a lot of wide receivers and quarterbacks going to the Big Ten West. Do you think that the Big Ten West will be very pass happy? I don't know I think very pass happy is taking it a little far. I think they're still, but I think how about more balanced?
Yeah.
Could we say that? I think more balanced offense and maybe more competent offense. Like Iowa needs. Here's the thing. If I'm Cade McNamara, I'm going to Iowa. And then you bring in Eric Gall, and he said on the Jordan Palmer podcast, he's like actively recruiting. That's what he's doing right now. He brought Eric Gall in. So you think like Brian Ferentz may be off to a bench warmer job in the NFL. It's a nice $200,000-$300,000 seat warmer position, and maybe you get a new OC in there. Question mark.
You know what? I just realized why Jeff Brom decided to get on out of there. Because as soon as everybody else in the Big Ten West figures out how to pass, he's like, oh well, now I can't stay here.
Yeah, they're like the one big passing offense in the Big Ten West.
Can I take a $200,000-$300,000 a year bench warmer job?
I'd like that.
Are you related to a Ferentz or a big?
I'll do whatever anyone says for that type of money. I mean, almost.
Yeah, exactly, Edward. Instead of that's about right. instead of
play
three
action.
runs and a punt. Run and play action. I think that's but to take Iowa to
Shanahan,
keep
baby.
going on the Iowa frame of mind, they're going to have two really, really good tight ends, right? And Eric All, when you have even that little bit of improvement, I think could go a long way with the right OC. Iowa fans are going to have because they need to know like what the heck is happening with their coaching and is Kirk actually going to do what he needs to do to help the program. So with that said, so there's been a lot of talk about NIL. And discussions about essentially what's the better solution? Is it raiding the transfer portal, getting some proven talent in the transfer portal, and then focusing your recruiting on the 3 and 4 stars, that may have grown up nearby, and let's take a Michigan or Ohio type of situation, and kind of focus on the people who really, really want it? Or do you go after those 5 stars who are going to, at this point, expect 6-figure NIL packages right off the bat? What do you think is going to happen to NIL in the next couple of years? Like, do we think there's going to be any regulation?
I'm not trying to argue with you, John. I'm not trying to attack your argument.
Yeah.
But for me, Josh Pate had a really good video on this. A lot of these 4-star guys, they're betting on themselves. They aren't betting on the NIL money. A lot of these guys, they're like, I'm going to bet on myself, and if I do well here, I'm going to get a NIL contract for what I did on the field in college, not just what I did here. So I think that's a really thing that people just forget to talk about. It's not all these guys want the bag. Some of these guys want to get good, get developed, and then get the bag for what they did on the field.
If anything, that strengthens what I was saying, because that's basically the logical next step of what I like. Exactly. There's and this is the case. So Michigan has this whole thing about transformational, not transactional. And the whole idea is that it's about what you put on the field. And then the recruiting pitches will look at JJ McCarthy. He's making $1 million something. Here's Blake Corum. He's making $1 million something. And you go after, you show the success stories of what you can do if you put, so you still mention NIL, but you mention it in a way where it's like, okay, put the product on the field and prove it, and earn your stripes. And Nick is talking about this too, and thank you for the super chat. We really do appreciate it. Is Michigan's transfer portal activity and success surprising? And do you think Washington and Oregon will end up in the Big Ten? So I'll take the first part, and then I definitely want to hear from the Pac-12 folks. Yes. But basically, is the activity and success surprising? A little. I mean, I think that it's an interesting strategy what they're doing. They're pulling out some really impressive folks especially for the O-line. And edge rushing, they're getting some really talented players. I'm a little surprised, but kind of not, because I feel like at this point, okay, we've gotten these 2 Big Ten championships, beat Ohio State twice, and then the recruiting pitch becomes easier when you win, right? So even for transfers, I feel like that's a factor, because then you're going after proven talent. So yeah, overall, I'd say my answer to your question is a little, but I'm not completely shocked. So we think Washington and Oregon are going to end up in the Big Ten?
Not in the immediate future.
Okay.
The math that has come back says that this is TV math. This is not Tony opinions. This is TV math. Supposedly, the TV networks have said that Washington and Oregon are each worth something like, I don't know, 40 million apiece. 45 million apiece in TV market revenue. Oregon, by the way, is also if you look at fitting into the Big Ten, Oregon's probably number 8 on the Pac-10's list. Probably they definitely below Washington, Stanford, Cal, maybe Utah, now maybe Colorado. Who knows? So Oregon's down. I mean, they're a great football team, but institutionally, they are not really at Big Ten level. For example, Oregon's research is not nearly at the level that the Big Ten expects it to be. So I don't see Oregon and Oregon and Washington applied and were told no, because what would have to happen is that every Big Ten school would have to agree to take less money to add them. And the Big Ten presidents and athletic directors said, we're not taking less money to add Washington and Oregon. I think they might add Stanford and Cal because of the research in the national labs and linking into that. It's like, I think they would add Stanford and Cal before they add Oregon and Washington.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, me as a Duck fan, I think Tony's done his research. He's looked at all the analytics. I mean, outside of the remaining teams in the Pac-10, technically, let's look at this point. In a sense, and as I've said, I think the Pac-10 now, regardless,
strong.
has shown this year to be the strongest it's been in
years.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sure.
the Pac-10 adding, even if they didn't add another team, but I think they're looking to do 2 to 4 teams to match, Big 12, Big 14. People can't count, that other conferences can't. The teams in the Pac-10 remaining have been relatively strong. I mean, Washington 10-2, Stanford, Oregon State, Utah 9-3. Utah just won the Pac-12. I mean, they have really strong teams. Arizona's on the rise. I mean, the Pac-12 has actually shown to be a very strong and competitive conference.
And when you think about like 5 years from now, guys, think about 5 years ago relative to today. Like, a lot can change. I would not be surprised actually to see something crazy like, we're making this up, right? But like a more link between the whole Pac-10 and the whole Big Ten. 5 years from now.
Yeah, the Pac-10, Pac-12, Pac-14, whatever it ends up being, links up later to go, we can make a ton more money. And guess what? Our rights still will end before the ACC's awful contract. So we can make even more money before the ACC can. I mean, that's smart business.
Thanks, John Swafford. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome, ACC.
You got one more, don't you? Erica has a super chat.
Yeah.
Oh, we have
Erica
an Erica super chat. She was agreeing with me on the Cade thing. So exactly, why the heck would we get Cade if Brian is still going to be around? Also, we apparently lost Proctor tonight. Very disappointing for signing day. So
yeah, that is a tough loss. I mean, he was kind of the cornerstone of Iowa's recruiting class. A really talented player.
5-star tackle.
He's number 5 in the country, or 4 or 5 in the country.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not good.
Yeah, and Iowa's known for just how well they produce at the offensive line, and to get a marquee name like that it's huge. But it's always going to be hard to pull those 5, to hold on to those 5-star kids if you're not a traditional power, recruiting power at least. Especially in the NIL and era and all of that. I'm not saying that's what factored into his recruitment. I really don't know. But it is. It
is Alabama, so it's not necessarily about. It's not just about. And Alabama needs linemen, so they probably sold him. You want to start on our offensive line next year, and we get guys to the NFL. I mean, it's not always about NIL money. It sucks because he's an Iowa kid,
it's
right?
Bama. Bama is always going to be a factor.
Yeah, and they come knocking. Everyone's gonna have a listen. He's your prototype guy, though. I mean, he's like 6'6" or 6'7", big dude, NFL ready, as a freshman. So I mean, not necessarily, but size wise at least. So he's gonna be a huge loss. Again, losing local talent to anyone, it sucks. But when he's the highest, I think he was also the highest rated recruit ever to Iowa. Yeah. I mean, he was. I remember hearing that. So I mean, it would hurt, but it's not over yet. I mean, kids get homesick, and these days of the transfer portal, but he goes to Alabama for 1 year, says, "Ooh, Alabama's not like home," and he comes back to Iowa. There's a lot that goes into this stuff too. So, and it's not sign day, so hang on, Erica. Maybe he's just talking, right? Is he not? Is he lost? Like he said, he's committing to Alabama.
I think from what it sounds like, it's all but done. That he's.
Oh, really?
I mean, this close to signing day, he's probably flipping.
Well, then,
I
Erica,
don't know if he's officially decommitted, but
you just gotta hope he misses those Iowa autumn nights and wants to come back home. So maybe a year from now, the transfer portal will be good to you guys.
Well, and keep in mind one thing about Cade McNamara, and I know that Cade himself wants to get away from this, but the term game manager, it's not always a bad word or a bad phrase. He is a great game manager, meaning he gets the offense where it needs to be, but he isn't an Aaron Rodgers type where he's going to just carry the offense himself.
Where he's going to lie to the world about his COVID vaccine?
Or there's
and then
that.
get COVID?
Or there's that.
But here's the thing, though. You don't need – see, Iowa
I'm kidding.
Iowa does not need Aaron Rodgers. Iowa needs like 21 points, 24 points.
Right.
They just need a quarterback, like you said, even as a game manager that's capable and not going to turn into an interception machine and move the ball down and get them, 20 to 30 points a game, and they're going to win a hell of a lot of those games with that defense.
Yeah, and you and the key, it's why I asked Corey and Erica and everybody, hey, do you guys have another tight end? Do you have a running game? Do you have, because Cade needs those things too. Like he needs a solid running game. He needs a solid tight end group, O-line, because he can get you a couple of decent throws a game. And he's actually won a couple of games based on a throw to like Eric All in the Penn State game. Otherwise we lose that game. So like if he has some of those pieces, I think that'll help.
He did a great podcast too. The Room, I think it's called. It was an awesome podcast. He was talking about it.
Nick, thank you for your super chat. Appreciate you. Okay, sounds like the Pac experts are coming back on for this one. Okay, so if the Pac-10, wait, we lost it. So if the Pac-10 gets valued high enough, you could potentially see the two conferences essentially merging in the future.
Which two? ACC?
He's talking about Big Ten and Pac-10. So the thing about the Big Ten and the Pac-10 is they're not going to get close enough is the thing. But what I could see them doing is integrating more, like especially on the academic side, as USC and UCLA join the BTAA and start to like reap those benefits. Everyone else is going to be like, we want that too, and they're going to be like, Stanford, we would love to have you integrated into our research and libraries and computers and IT and everything else. I could see them again. We're talking 5 years from now, another new world. I could see them integrating more of that stuff together.
Yeah,
that's just like a Tony futurism thought. That's not a like, this is happening. But particularly as we get towards the end of this next round of TV contracts, you could see them start to maybe do stuff more together and start to repair. The relationships are a little strained right now, but I think that those relationships will mend.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. Like, don't come at me with those receipts. It
could be a thing where eventually we have SEC super team, Big Ten super team, and proxy war with SEC and ESPN and Big Ten and Fox. Who knows?
Well, and
don't forget Amazon getting into the mix and probably throwing around a couple.
Well, because the other thing is, like, in all honesty, if you think about it, like, I could very much see a world where like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 kind of like integrate in a lot, and the Big 12 and the SEC kind of like integrate in a lot. And who knows what happens with the ACC?
Who knows? Erica gave us another one. We really do appreciate Erica being on here and being
Erica. We love you and we love Cade.
Yeah, thanks for being a friend. And thanks for supporting all the channels. Caden hasn't said it yet, but it's all over Hawkeye Nation. Rumors flying. My thing is, this is a cruddy thing to do just before signing day. And guess what? I know a thing or two about things that happened before signing day, because last year our coach almost went to the Minnesota Vikings. So things happen before signing day. I completely understand. It can be rough.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it could be before signing day. How about on signing day? There've been a lot of hurt feelings on signing day, especially like let's say you have a quarterback, he decides he wants to go to a different school, last minute swap, and you've only been recruiting that one guy. You said no to the other quarterback. Well, there goes a quarterback in your class. So it happens. This stuff happens forever. That's why the old fashioned signing day and remember the February signing day, that's early stuff. Man, the 3 or 4 days lead up to that was like fireworks. That was fun. That was like that break in the action where we're like 4 months out from the season, the meat of the season. And then in February, you're sitting there and all of a sudden you got to have that little late Christmas 2 months later, with your team and signing day. So, but it sucks, Erica. Go Hawks. Sorry to hear that.
Absolutely. So I thought that for our wrap up today, we usually talk about your team, talk about et cetera, and then where it can find you. I'm wondering if we could talk about the bowl game that excites you the most, or that you're you're looking the most forward to. Because obviously we've got a whole bunch of bowl games coming up, playoff, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love to just hear what you're looking forward to. Please tell people where they can find you as well. And we'll start with Tim.
You guys can find me on the Pac-12 network. Pac-12 network. Pac-12 show. Probably more people watch us in the Pac-12 network. I'm sure of that.
That is probably true.
So, but we're on the Pac-12 show on Wednesdays at 7:45 with Chris, Tony, and Rick. And then I'm sure we'll be doing some stuff for USC throughout the offseason. That's to be determined.
There we go. All right. So stay tuned. Jordan. Tim, bowl game that you're most excited about.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Well, for obvious reasons, the Cotton Bowl. I'm going to see. It looks like Tuli Tuipulotu, our All-American defensive lineman, is going to play in the game, which all of a sudden made our chances of winning a lot better. That guy is an absolute beast, and we're lucky to have him on defense this year. So I think it's going to be a great game. I think Tulane's going to be there and hungry, right? And they're going to give USC everything they can handle. So I think it's going to be a great game.
Absolutely. And before we get to Jordan,
Thanks, Nick.
Nick has sent us thank you again, Nick, for your generosity tonight.
And Nick, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last donation for your time, gentlemen. Thank you so much for staying up this late. It's a crazy college football world with a lot of questions. Oh, yeah. I hope things move forward positively for the sport, as do we all. And that's why we're all here, because we want to work together to create more positivity in the community. Absolutely. So, all right. So Jordan, a bowl game that you're most excited about, I think I might know. And then also where can people find you?
Well, it's kind of cheating to say to choose the Orange Bowl, the greatest Orange Bowl of all time, the realest Orange Bowl of all time. I'm excited for that game, obviously, and I'm excited for the playoffs. So I'm going to pick a different one, which is still going to be kind of sort of tangentially related to Clemson, but I'm really interested in that Gator Bowl between Notre Dame and South Carolina. Personally, I'm going to be the biggest Irish fan that day, so that'll be that'll be fun. But and it's not just because it's the two teams that beat Clemson this year, but it's also just I think it's a really intriguing matchup. Two programs that with newer head coach Shane Beamer's in his second year, Marcus Freeman's in his first, and I know there's some opt-outs on both sides, but it's a really interesting game. And those two teams haven't played in a long time. I'm hoping for a Notre Dame beatdown. That would be the greatest thing in the world. So I go Irish, all of that. I'll put on a Notre Dame hat if I have to, or whatever, to give those boys good luck. So, but yeah, I think the Gator Bowl is really interesting. So that's my pick. And you can find me on Twitter at Jobo0209, and you can also find me on the Clemson Voice of College Football channel, where we do shows every week. So make sure you guys check that out. And thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
And
go Irish, beat Gamecocks, beat the Gamecocks. Sorry for that game. One other Group of 5 game that I'm excited for is the New Orleans Bowl between South Alabama, who gave UCLA a great fight, and Western Kentucky, with Austin Reed opting back into playing the bowl game. They always have a fun offense, air raid at Western Kentucky, and South Alabama went 10-2, had a great year. We're also excited for that game. That game, I believe, is going to be on Wednesday at 9 Eastern. So we're definitely going to check out that game.
Nice. And where can people find you?
So the Young Gun show is about to start right after College Football After Dark. So if you can hop over there, and I'm also over at Will ND on YouTube as well. I'm going to be interviewing a writer for the Salt Lake Tribune about the Utes tomorrow. So that video should be up pretty soon on Young Guns as well. So it should be fun to talk Utes.
Go Utes.
Absolutely. I'm going to get your link on there as well. The Young Guns, because it is a great show. You know, I've hung out with y'all on occasion, and it's a really good kind of in-depth look at whatever the topics of the week are. So these young guns, they actually know a lot about football. And I think if you watch just watch 20 minutes, and you'll be surprised. I mean, I was. Young Guns. So we'll make sure that gets in there. Awesome. So subscribe to them. Tony, what bowl game are you interested in, and where can people find you?
Well, I'm always interested in the Rose Bowl because I love the Rose Bowl. I'm very excited about watching Michigan from my hometown taking on TCU. Like, I think that's gonna be a great game. I'm really excited to see it, and I love our Cotton Bowl. Like, I love all these bowls, and it's. I think that we have an exciting bowl season with a lot of really great games, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So, and you guys, you can always find us. We do the Pac-12 show here on the Voice of College Football. If you guys want, love to chat with you guys on Twitter. I caused a bit of a little stir today. We'll put it in the chat. You can follow my my latest little data debate that I think it bothered some fans of the Southern Plains, but it made a lot of Utah fans really happy. So anyway, if you want to look at like some funny charts, go enjoy. It's in the chat.
There you have it. All right. I guess I'll go, Ben, and then you wrap it up.
No, John.
Okay.
You know the ordeal.
All right.
I got a cameo from Sam.
Yes, you did.
Who's now he's drunk off his ass and he can't get up, so it's fine. So you are the man of the hour. So as usual, myself, of course, I won't be a full homer. Of course, I want to see Oregon, UNC with Bo Nix and Drake May playing. I think that could be a shootout. But like Tony said, I'm really interested in Utah, Penn State. Like Utah beat USC twice, regardless of what the USC fans want to argue about the first one. Point is, Penn State is easily the third best in the Big Ten.
Yep.
So it will be very interesting to see how those two match up. And this is not the Utah team of last year that went toe-to-toe with Ohio State. So it'll be a very fascinating game, and I can't wait. You can find me here, of course, on usually Oregon Post games. Sometimes, I'm traveling a lot. But every Sunday when we're having our show, which we will discuss in further with John, Tony, and all the key contributors here, where I didn't get involved with you guys. So we'll discuss that offline as to the upcoming shows, and including the off season as it's coming up soon. But I, again, always appreciate all of the viewers, all of the people who subscribe, like the video, comment, all the super chats, because besides the people here on the panel, this is what makes the show go on. If we were just here talking to no one, what the hell would we be doing? I mean, literally, what the hell would we be doing? So everyone who's involved with the chats, and I see them blowing up in my side panel here, it's like just going crazy. And also I want to shout out, and I did it earlier, but please, if you see Connor Johnson or Clint Moses, the Beaver fans, our Oregon State Beaver fans who just whipped the hell out of Florida, no matter what the excuses are, please let them know Mark Rogers wants to get in touch with them and drop them his email so they can get in touch with him. Because I think he wants to have a special with them about it, because it was a absolute ass whooping. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was absolutely embarrassing. So let them know, and I will drop my info on my private channel here in the chat. But please, John, as always, the host, the man of the hour, take it away for us, and then let us know why Michigan is better than all of our teams.
Oh, geez. How about that for a handoff? I do not think Michigan is better than every single team. I will say this. I am very excited about the playoff. I mean, we're in the playoff for the second straight year, and maybe this time we won't get completely ass whooped in the playoff with JJ McCarthy under center this time. I say TCU is a great team. Their quarterback has been playing out of his mind. So you got to watch out for that. But I think it's going to be a fun battle in the trenches, and maybe Michigan can actually win a playoff game. Who knows? Wouldn't that be fun for some and not so fun for others? But I just want to genuinely thank everybody who has spent time today, either panelist or in chat. Whether you give a super chat, you like the video, please like the video. It goes so far. And I'm going to encourage everybody to do one more thing. In the comments, or the chat or the comments, please share with us what bowl game you're most excited about, right? Just let us know what you're most excited about and why. We'll compile them, and maybe we'll do a highlight of our favorite ones on the next show. You never know. There you go. See, Ben is backing me up there. But yeah, so we're gonna go on a little Christmas vacay because literally it's the day of Christmas when next Sunday is. So may not be on Christmas, but we'll definitely be back later and talk about all the topics of the day. So thanks so much, and until next time, thank you, and go blue.
Quack, quack.
And quack,
Later,
quack.
guys.
There you go.
Quack, quack.
All of them. There you go.